This is Grandma Gertie Dickson. I don't know what you want me to say, but your mom wants to know something about me when I was little, and I don't remember too much right now today. I guess probably the earliest thing I remember is living at Grandma Darby's house on Spruce Street in Sharon before I ever went to school. And I remember up in the bedroom that my mother and father and Aunt Shirley and I slept in, there was a door that went out on a tin roof, and I used to love to run and play out there. And Grandma would get mad. She'd say, "You're not supposed to play out there." And then when it rained, it was so nice to listen to the rain pitter-patter on that tin roof. Oh, it sounded so nice and peaceful and restful. And I somehow seem to remember Aunt Shirley sleeping in a crib, but I don't remember whether I slept with my mother and father. What? I really don't remember that much about it. But I do remember the front bedroom at Grandma Darby's house. It was so pretty. I just loved to stand and look in the door. It was a big room, had a big brass bed in it. It was so pretty. The room had yellow curtains at the window, and it had striped wallpaper that was green and yellow and white. I don't remember the rug on the floor, but the bed had a pretty white chenille spread and a beautiful little pillow that Grandma had made, my grandma. And it was trimmed with yellow lace, and it had yellow roses embroidered on it with green leaves, and the room was bright and airy, and it was always so pretty. I just loved to just stand there and look in that room. That was for special guests when they came. And those special guests were Uncle Oliver and Aunt Isabel, which was my mother's brother and his wife. Maybe then they visited once or twice a year, and that was about all. And I think she was born in about 1904. Her name was Isabel McGee from Pittsburgh. And then Uncle Oliver, who was my grandma's brother, was born in 1902. And Aunt Mildred, hey, by the way, I was named for her. I have her middle name, Irene. She was Mildred Irene Darby. She was born in 1904, the same year as Aunt Isabel. And my mother, Gertrude Darby Means, was born in 1909, October 15th, actually. And then my father, who was Harry Lawrence Means from Delaware Street in Sharon, was born in 1908, February 21st, 1908. And let me see, Matthew, who else did I tell you about? Can't remember now. Anyway, I had a sister, an older sister, that was born, let me think, I think her birthday was August the 15th, if I remember correctly, in 1925, and she only lived a couple days. And then I was born August the 5th, 1926. And Aunt Shirley was born March 25th of 1928. So I think I was, a couple years, close to a couple years older than she was. And we lived at that time when we were born. We weren't born in a hospital. We were born at Grandma Darby's house. And we lived there for a few years. Then we moved to Grove City. My mother, my father, and Aunt Shirley and I lived there for a couple years. and then came back to Sharon and lived at Grandma Darby's until just before I started school. And then we moved down to the corner of Newcastle and Orchard Street in Sharon. And that was a little house that my mother had been born in when she was a baby. Grandma and Grandpa and my mother and Aunt Mildred and Uncle Oliver had lived in that house. And that's where we moved, on the corner of Newcastle and Orchard, in that little house. Just before I started school, actually. Started first grade. We didn't have kindergarten then. We just went to first grade. And then I remember when I was just about finished with first grade of school, Grandma Darby, Grandpa Darby, Uncle Oliver, and Aunt Isabel were taking a vacation trip to Florida. And I had to have my tonsils out, and it was supposed to be a secret from Grandma and Grandpa Darby. We weren't going to tell them because we thought they might cancel their vacation. Anyways, I think my mother and dad just thought that would be fun if I had a secret. It would be more exciting for me to go to the hospital and have my tonsils out, and I probably wouldn't worry about it. So as soon as school was out, they left on vacation, and I had my tonsils out, and all I could drink was ginger ale and eat ice cream when I came home. And I was so skinny those days. And Matthew, you won't know who Mahatma Gandhi is, but your mother might. And I was so skinny in those days that they called me Mahatma Gandhi. And I have a picture taken of me, and someday maybe I'll find it and give it to you, when I was that size. And it looks so funny. It looks like little bird legs with big knobby knees. It was so a funny picture. Anyways, I guess after I had my tonsils on, I must have gained a little bit of weight, and today I could use a little bit of that skinny. But we lived there in that house and had some really good times. Had a Romanian family. Their name was Bolo, that lived a couple houses down Orchard Street. It was very good friends with us. We had another family that lived next door to them, whose name was Wanzak. That was a little bit closer to us. And then the one just below us, whose name was Rankin. And those people are still friends today, the ones that we can see of them. Then there was a brick flat across the street from us, and we had some good friends who lived there by the name of Fleet. And then some other ones whose name was Stein. We went to school with Martin and Leon Stein, and Martin now has the Imperial Dry Cleaners in Sharon. And Leon Stein is a doctor, an osteopathic doctor. And you went to school with whose son? Leon's son. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, gee whiz, Matt, your mother went to school with him. How about that? Oh, I remember when we used to play in the kitchen of that house on rainy days. And I remember when I went to school, when I'd come home from school, Leon and Aunt Shirley were about the same age, and they'd be playing there on the kitchen floor. And I remember my grandfather used to tease all the kids in the neighborhood, and he'd say, "If you don't behave, I'm going to cut your ears off." He teased them all the time. And I remember that he used to tell Leon used to like Aunt Shirley, and he used to say, "I'm going to marry her someday when I grow up." And Grandpa would say, "No, Leon, you can't marry her. You're a Jew." And she'd say, or he would say, Leon would say to my grandfather, "Well, I'm going to make her be a Jew so I can marry her." And he used to tease him all the time. And then there was another boy that lived next door to Stein's in that brick apartment whose name was Jack Davis. And he went to school. He was Martin and I's age. He went to school with us till we got to junior high school. And then he moved to California, and he come back when I was a junior in high school, and he looked a little bit different, and he was going by his middle name, which was Kenneth then. So he went by Kenneth Davis, and it took me about 6 months before I finally had a chance to talk to him and realized that he was the same Jack Davis that I used to play with when I was little. And then there was a family of Feldoviches that lived on a corner, and she still lives in that corner. And her husband was a postman. And then, I can't even remember who lived next. Oh, I remember who lived next door to us. Was a little girl. Also, I went to school with. Her name was Peggy Gerga. And her father was a gypsy. And they lived there for a long time. And we just had a family of Pernas that lived there. And now one of them's a neighbor of Aunt Shirley's. We had a lot of fun. The kids in the neighborhood used to play hopscotch and jumping rope, and we used to play Andy over, and we'd throw the ball up over our little house and up on down the other side of the house. And then we used to play kick the can down in the alley behind us, and we'd take sides, and one side would be their turn to kick the can and see how far it could kick it. We used to play Red Rover. We used to play jacks all the time. And in that little house, we had a grape arbor that was out over the back. And it was almost like a room. It covered the whole big area. And we used to set the card table up out there, and the whole neighborhood would get together and play Monopoly. And we played for days and days. We'd play after we come home from school. And when it was time to go in for supper, we'd gather everything up, put rubber bands around it, mark it with the name of the person who was there. We'd mark everything down on paper. The next day we'd come home from school, and we'd get it out again, start over. Games would go on for weeks. And I'm trying to think what else we used. Oh, and we used to play a game that was like horseshoes. And it had metal round discs that you threw at a peg and tried to loop it over the peg. And I remember one day somebody at the other end threw the metal disc, and I didn't realize they threw it, and I stepped over and it hit me right in the shin, and I have a scar on my shin to this day where it was. Oh, let me see, what else? Oh, we used to run our doll baby buggies down the hill. We'd give them a push and shove them down the hill. And then that one day we did that, and my mother said, I remember when we lived in this house, and Aunt Mildred put me in the baby buggy and gave me a shove down the hill, and the buggy tipped over at the end of the alley and dumped me out in it. No, Grandma Means. When she was little, she and Aunt Mildred and Uncle Oliver lived in that same house. And Aunt Mildred pushed her down the buggy. I'm trying to think other games we played at school. Oh, we had a janitor's school everybody just loved. We all called him Grandpa Breast. And he was just like the grandpa of the whole school. We didn't have swings at school and playgrounds like you had. We had to make our own games. We played dodgeball, jumping rope, and Red Rover, and all those kind of games at school. And we played hide and seek and ran around, hid behind trees in the building and things like that. And I'm trying to think. Oh, I remember one time when I was little, we were playing hide and seek around our house, the whole neighborhood. Oh, we must have had 15 kids in that neighborhood to play with. And I remember hiding around the corner of Perna's house, and when the kiddo that was counting at the telephone pole was off looking for somebody, I started to run to get in free, and I didn't know that Mr. Perna had planted grass seed in his yard and had put up a fence, and it was a fence just with cord, and it was kind of dusky, and you couldn't see it, and I went to run through the yard, and I tripped over that fence and fell flat on my stomach on the cement sidewalk, and it knocked me out, knocked the wind out of me, and all the kids got upset. They carried me home, put me on a Davenport, They thought I was dead. And they were so upset. It took quite a while to get my breath back. And I guess everybody must have been glad I wasn't, but that hurt for days. My ribs were so sore from having the wind knocked out of me. Guess I didn't do that anymore. I tried to think, I remember when I was a kid, the WPA put in a new street out front, Brick Street. And there was a man there, and we used to call him Pudding, Aunt Shirley and I, and all the kids did, because we'd say to him, "What's your name?" And he'd say, "Pudding. Ask me again, I'll tell you the same." So we always called him Pudding. Every time we saw him, we grew up with one of his kids. He moved into the neighborhood, and we always called him Mr. Pudding. Crazy things you remember. Oh, well, anyway, I grew up, marched in a band. You marching in a parade today just reminded me of telling you about me marching in my first parade. It was a centennial parade in Sharon, and it was summer between my 8th grade and 9th grade. I marched in a majorette uniform because it was the only uniform that was left when I got up there to march. And I was about in the middle of the band. If you think that didn't look silly, with one majorette in the middle of the band, the rest of them out in front, and I was playing a clarinet. And we marched 5 miles down through Farrell in that parade. And it was the very first time I ever marched. And let me see, I played the clarinet all the time. I played in the band, and when I went into high school, I joined the orchestra and played saxophone in the orchestra sometimes, and clarinet sometimes. Marched in a lot of parades, went to the basketball games and football games. That was really fun. I really enjoyed being in the band, and someday I hope you get to be in the band and play an instrument. It's really a lot of fun. Then afterwards, I think possibly maybe I was a junior or a senior in high school, and the man that taught us to play our instrument was Tiny Klopfer, and he had a big orchestra at his place. We played there, and then I think probably maybe my senior year, he started an all-girls orchestra. And Aunt Shirley and I both played in it, and there was probably about 12 girls all told that played in it. And then I learned to play the alto sax, or soprano sax, which looked a little bit like a clarinet, except it was shorter and fatter. And the soprano sax would look like a baby saxophone. Alto clarinet, which looked like a gray, funny long clarinet with a hooked end on it. Learned to play all those different kind of saxophones and the clarinet. And we all wore long blue formals. And then we had navy blue skirts and white blouses with red ties that we wore sometimes we went. We played over in Youngstown on the stage for a good many shows. Played at the hospitals. And then come along the war, and we played out at Camp Reynolds Girls Orchestra. We used to play out there at the hospital for the fellows that were wounded. And we used to play it at the USO dances. And that was where the Buell Club is right now. They had the USO had dances there. We used to play there for their dances. Really enjoyed it. And I remember one song in particular we played was Pistol Packin' Mama. And we all sang, and Aunt Shirley played the saxophone, and she played the accordion. And I remember everybody clapped because she was so little. She was so short. At that time, she didn't play the drums in the girls' orchestra. No, there was another girl who played them. But I remember everybody laughed because she was so little at that time. Well, she's still little, but she was about the shortest one. And they had a holster with guns, cap guns. And we'd all sing Pistol Packin' Mama, and then we'd get up front and she had the guns, and when they'd say pistol pack, Mom can't remember how it all went, but anyway, she would go pow, pow, and she'd shoot the cap gun off, and everybody would laugh. I thought that was good. And we played for dances at the high school, and just all kinds of places. We really enjoyed it. It was really a lot of fun. That's part of my life I really remember. Then when I graduated, I went to work at Penny's. Well, really, my business arithmetic teacher asked me would I like to have a job for the summer because I was planning on going to college to be a teacher. And she said, well, now, Penny's called and they would like somebody to come down to work for the summer for a cashier. Would you like to go? I recommended you. So I went down planning to work just for the summer, and I stayed for 4.5 years. It was a short summer. And that's where I met Grandpa. He was in the Navy when I started to work, and come home on leave several times, and everybody, Mrs. Kaiser and Mrs. Taylor would say to me, you wait till Barney comes home. You just wait till Barney comes home. I know you're going to like him. And when I first met him, he'd come up the office steps, and they introduced me to him, and when they said Gertie, he said, you mean Gravel Gertie? And I didn't like him then. I thought, oh, that's terrible. But then I started, Gertie from Missouri, yep. Then I started calling him Barney Google. Anyway, we started dating. I think our first date was Christmas Eve of 1946. And Aunt Ruth and Uncle Clarence had just been married a few months. In fact, a few weeks. They were married just shortly before Christmas. And we went to their house, along with Aunt Dode, and her boyfriend at that time was Jake Hall, whom she married later. And I can't think who else was there, but we sat around and talked, and then we all went to Christmas Eve church, the Central Christian Church in Sharon. And at that time, it was fashionable for everybody to wear hats. And I didn't know we were planning on going to church, and I didn't have a hat. So Aunt Ruth had a whole shelf full of hats. And she gave me a little pillbox hat that I wore. And she wore one with a great big brim on it. She just loved those kind of hats. So we went to church and come home, and Uncle Clarence had made spaghetti. No, it wasn't spaghetti, it was chili. He made chili. He was famous for his chili. Anyway, that was the first real date I had with Grandpa. And then, let me see, in 1948, at Valentine's Day, he gave me an onyx ring with a little diamond in the middle, and that was to be my Valentine's gift. And he had it in a great big double cardboard heart tied with red ribbons. And we were going out that night, and in the meantime, he got a telephone call from home, and his grandmother had died. So we didn't go out that night, but he gave me that at work anyway. And then we went down the following summer. We went down to D.C. to visit Millie and Obie O'Brien. Obie had been his chief in the Navy. And then we went down to Aunt Isabel and Uncle Oliver. And while we were at Millie and Obie's, we decided to become engaged. And so he got me an engagement ring. And let me see, that was in August, must have been in August of, can't remember, 48 maybe. And then we were married in February on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1949.
We are at Newton Elementary, where Mom teaches, your grandma, and family's come down. Here's your cousin Alex. Of course, there's Mom, Aunt Peg feeding you, Aunt Jean, your great-grandma, cousin Amanda, of course, Papa, and Grandma.
Hi.
You are having potato soup and some cheese.
There's a little sampling of
And crackers.
Oh, and crackers.
Crackers, a cheese ball. This is banana.
Here in a minute, I'm gonna give her a COOKIE.
Ooh.
What's that spell, Mom? It's not really fruitcake nail.
She knows what that is, like CANDY. Say like chocolate anything. She's like, what? Chocolate?
Yummy, yummy. Alex, coffee's ready.
Oh, coffee. We got to take